Hello everybody, it is Mr. Truth here, and in this video I'm going to be doing a brief scouting report of Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders, very hyped up by media, by fans, by some scouts alike, and I wanted to talk about him. Now I already did a sort of a breakdown of his game against Cincinnati where I came off very unimpressed by how Sanders played. It was mainly very easy, out-breaking routes, and just screens and swing passes and like little crossers that anybody can throw, mixed with a couple decent throws. He had maybe 2 or 3 decent throws that game, largely underthrowing deep passes and stuff like that. And I just left not impressed with Sanders on film. There was nothing to me that screamed that he's a starting franchise caliber quarterback. And in this video, I wanted to address the things I like about Shedeur's game and the things I do not like. So, let me just get straight into the meat and potatoes of this video. Let me get into the upsides of Shedeur Sanders' game at quarterback. I feel like Sanders has an average frame and size for an NFL quarterback prospect. He's 6'2", 6'3", something. We'll get official measurements at the combine. Hopefully, when the combine comes around. So, but my estimation, he's 6'2" to 6'3". He also has pretty solid accuracy. It's above average, I'd say. He's able to hit players in stride pretty easily at both the short and intermediate levels of the field. And also, Sanders seems to really thrive playing out of structure. He's able to make highlight reel scrambles and, a lot of them per game. And to me, that's both a good thing and a bit of a drawback as well, which we'll see later in the video. I feel like Shedeur's a bit of an average athlete. I think, in my estimation, he'll probably clock in at a 4.8 to 4.9 at his pro day or the combine when it comes to, doing the 40-yard dash time. And that's really all the positives that I have listed for Shedeur Sanders' game at quarterback. I am still largely unimpressed with his game, and let's get straight into the sort of biggest portion of this video, the negatives of his game, the downsides of his game at quarterback. I feel like Sanders has a below-average NFL arm. He never really truly showcased that he can throw into NFL-sized passing windows consistently at the collegiate level. He also has a bit of a knack for underthrowing most deep passes that are over 35 yards down the field. And also, his tendency to hold on to the ball for too long and sometimes drift in the pocket is an enormous, a massive, a very huge red flag. That is like something that I cannot ignore, something that was very prevalent on the film where he would drift certain directions in the pocket. When he had a clean pocket or when he had a little bit of pressure, he would start drifting and holding on to the ball for way too long. It's just not something that flies in the NFL, in my opinion. And sometimes he does have problems with throwing the ball accurately under duress. The Nebraska game showed that perfectly. He doesn't seem to me like he's a good processor of information at all. He often locks on to one player, and never makes more than a read or two on any given play, which obviously, if, the whole drifting and holding on to the ball was a red flag, this, to me, is his biggest red flag. His processing is almost comically bad, and it's just not something that's going to fly in the NFL as well. And his ability to sense pressure is also not up to par, as sometimes he just straight up starts running around attempting to create a miracle play, which obviously will not go over well in the NFL. Just see Caleb Williams, for example, instead of either stepping up in the pocket or just throwing the ball away. Now, I feel like this one is going to, ruffle some feathers here, and people say that it doesn't matter, but I feel like this is also something that is very important to note, so I'm going to say it regardless. Shedeur Sanders played laughably bad competition in his final year at Colorado, facing 6 teams ranked in the bottom 50 when it comes to pass yards allowed per game, along with North Dakota State and FCS program. That is something that obviously I think a lot of people, especially Shedeur Sanders fans, are going to be pissed at. They're going to say it doesn't matter. But why weren't the other quarterbacks in the conference putting up those numbers? And there were quarterbacks in that conference that were putting up pretty good numbers. So I don't want to hear from people, this is just an observation. And it's a pretty important observation because the level of competition he was playing was, I'm sorry to say, it was fucking shit. He was playing players that will never make any professional league. Can you imagine what he's going to look like playing in the NFL against grown men in their physical prime? Grown men. You're facing a bunch of 19, 18, 20, 21-year-old dudes. And what is this style of play going to look like against grown men? That is my one of my bigger concerns. I mentioned this earlier, but he looked absolutely lost against Nebraska. He constantly took unnecessary sacks and made poor decisions throwing the ball. And one of the other main downsides is he rarely throws with timing or anticipation. He usually waits until his receiver has already hit the break of his route instead of throwing it at the break He needs to throw it at the break, not after he's broken. That shows that he's just not a good processor of information, and he doesn't throw with any sort of anticipation. Now, overall, to me, Sanders is just not worth a first-round draft pick. His ceiling is a fun but pretty risky spot starter with some pretty big brand and name recognition, but really, to me, nothing else. Now, I'm going to introduce sort of a new system. I'm going to grade quarterbacks from 0 to 5. 0 being trash, 1 being like, well, 0 being like horrible, like a high schooler, like a straight-up high school quarterback. 1 being a really bad prospect, 2 being a mediocre prospect, 3 being a good prospect, 4 being a borderline elite prospect, and 5 being an elite quarterback prospect. Now, my overall grade for Shedeur Sanders is going to be a 2 out of 5. So he is a mediocre at best quarterback prospect going into the NFL. And if I, had to pick him in the NFL draft, I would pick him in the late 5th round. I have him as a late 5th round grade, and I would grade him overall a 2 out of 5. Man, once again, I'm just not really... I'm not really seeing anything special when I'm watching Shedeur Sanders on the game film. It's just, to me, I don't get the hype. I see a guy who is fairly accurate, who can throw at, 2 levels, short and intermediate portions of the field, and can throw over the middle pretty well. But when you take that away, what else is there? He doesn't have an NFL arm. He can't process. He's not really good at reading coverage. He's not the best athletically. He plays a very reckless style of football. It's just not something to me that is going to translate super well to the NFL. And we've seen quarterbacks like this before come and go where, they're okay athletically, but, they play a backyard style of football. Guys like Trey Lance, who are decent athletes, but just never catch on to the NFL game. To me, he's sort of like a Trey Lance. He reminds me a bit of Trey Lance mixed with, I don't know. He's Trey Lance mixed with Kenny Pickett. He has Kenny Pickett arm strength and sort of Trey Lance athleticism. And a lot of people are going to say, well, Trey Lance is better athletically. I get why people would say that. But to me, it's Trey Lance's ability to process coverage mixed with Kenny Pickett's physical tools, which is obviously makes a really bad quarterback prospect, especially in the first round. You would never dare pick a guy like that in the first round. But to me, he's Kenny Pickett mixed with Trey Lance, and that spells disaster at the NFL level. Thank you all for watching this video. This has been Mr. Truth, and this was nothing but the truth.